Hey guys, we are doing another Cel Shading video. So today is going to be the big one that a lot of people have been waiting for, and I've been waiting for, is going to be the animated Spider-Man. So this one I think is going to be a tough one for a lot of reasons that we'll get into in a second. I do want to say that I do like the shading on this one. I think it is pretty cool, but I also have had a lot of people asking about being able to remove the shading from this Spider-Man. So first, let's start with a comparison with the Spider-Man from the Amazing Friends 3-pack. And the reason why we're comparing these two is because these are really the two that a lot of people are comparing to see which one they would actually want more, because they do want a red and blue Spider-Man. So you can see that one of them has a darker blue, and otherwise it looks mostly the same. And they are mostly the same body, except the arms are a little bit different, and then the heads are obviously different, and then obviously the shading. But the other interesting thing is that the web lines are actually different too, and I think it's a lot more prominent on the boots. So you can see that the darker one, the Amazing Friends pack one, has fewer web lines compared to the Cel Shaded one. So you can't necessarily just pop and swap the boots necessarily, because then you would be swapping out part of the design. Otherwise, in terms of this Spider-Man, the difficulty is going to come from the fact that the whole thing is molded in different colors. So the Cyclops and the Morph were fairly easy because the parts that needed the paint removal were all the color that was already visible. But I can tell you that the arms are all red molded with the blue and then the darker blue cel shading there. And then the upper chest is definitely red with the blue paint. The lower abdomen is actually molded in blue with red paint. And then our legs are definitely molded blue, and then the boots are molded red. So for that reason, we're actually going to do something a little bit different than we have with the previous Cel Shading. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to pop the limbs apart as much as we can. So specifically, I'm going to aim to remove the arms and then the boots. So I got the boiling water, and I'm going to just get them in there and let them soak a bit. Spider-Man in a jacuzzi. All right, let's see if that was enough to pull his limbs off. Okay, so we have a limbless Spider-Man, and that should make a lot of this a whole lot easier to do. And so I'm gonna also go ahead and pop off his head so that we don't accidentally ruin the head, and then that way we can really focus. So besides the torso being difficult, I think the back spider logo will be hard because there is a black line going through it just a bit. So I don't know if I'm gonna, I'll attempt it, but I get the feeling that most of you that are gonna try this aren't gonna want to do that, because I get the feeling I'm gonna end up messing that up. So I am gonna focus on paint removal as opposed to paint matching and then painting over, because I'm not very good at that. And at the same time, I also want to do something that I think will be more approachable for new people, because I think paint matching can be pretty hard and a little daunting to do. So I think boiling water, popping limbs, and then just removing paint is a lot easier to try. So that's the reason why I'm doing that. So if you want to tell me that I messed up in the comments, then definitely go ahead and do that. But otherwise, again, the whole point is to help out the newest people to this hobby. All right, so in terms of tools, besides the bowl and the hot water, we also are gonna have our brush cleaner and restorer like we've used in the last several videos. This has been fantastic for removal without too much concern for damaging plastic. We also have regular cotton swabs as well as pointed cotton swabs. And of course, I'll have everything linked below. So in case you haven't seen it, here's a pointed cotton swab. And then here is a regular cotton swab. So the pointed ones are useful for getting a little bit more detailed and specific. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start with the legs, because I know that's gonna be the easiest thing to do and I won't have to worry too much about it. So it's been removed, and that was easy enough. However, you can see I already managed to get a bit of paint from somewhere else smudged. I'm not sure where that came from, so be careful. Okay, so next I'm going to tackle just this ab and that ab, because again, this piece I believe is molded in blue, so removing those two black lines should not be a major issue. Alright, there's our abdomen, no major problems, and we can move on. So what I'm going to try to tackle next are going to be the underarms slash torso, to try to get the dark blue. And what I'm going to do is a trick that Loston Wallace, who is a really great artist, and I'll link him down below, had advised to me in one of the comments. And so the idea is going to be to take a Ziploc bag or something similar, and then I'm going to tape it around to try to prevent myself from accidentally messing up more than I intend to, right? So I've got that, and then I have the Tamiya tape, which I used in the Sinister video. All right, here he is, super taped up. So I'm trying to tape up anything that I might accidentally touch and rub off. So that's why I covered the front there, since we are going to be working on both of basically the armpits. And I went ahead and covered both arms there, because the arms are molded in red and again painted blue, so I don't want to accidentally hit those. And so as far as trying to remove the blue, what I'm gonna try is I'm gonna try using a cotton swab and just kind of lightly going at it, because I want to avoid getting all the way down to the red, obviously. So I went ahead and I dipped it in, and then I also try to squeeze out a bunch so that it's on there, but it's not soaking in it. So check that out. So you can see that I got it off kind of like inside of the shape. And so all I did was I kind of went at it gently with the cotton swab. And then after a little bit, I switched over to the dry side to make sure that I didn't like push too much of the chemical into it and then accidentally get down to the red. And that seemed to work really well. So what I'm going to try in order to get the rest of it is actually I'm going to use a pointed one so that I can be more precise with trying to target the outside. Alright, so here we are with it pretty much entirely removed from that back half. So that actually worked out really well. And I think part of why this is working is because the darker blue is pretty well caked on. So as long as you go gently and take your time, then it seems to be coming off pretty good. So I'm going to call that last cotton swab done because I don't want to soak it some more since it already has a bunch in there and I don't want to contaminate my chemical. So I'm just going to use a fresh one. I got the majority of the front half off, and then all I have left is right at the breast. And so I'm just going to use a fresh pointed cotton swab for that. All right, it is off. I think that turned out really, really good. You can kind of see, I don't know how well that comes off on camera, but right at the point where the cel shading was, it was kind of hard to get at, but I also needed to try to be gentle with it. But because I can't tell if the web line came off because I rubbed at it or because it didn't exist underneath the paint. But what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use a Gundam marker to try to finish it. All right, there that goes. I'm really happy with how that turned out. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock out this side, and hopefully it'll be just as easy as this side. I can't think of any reason why it wouldn't be. Oh, and then another thing. So I did do the rib shading over here while I was doing the rest of it, and that one was just me going at it with the tip of the pointed cotton swab and just gently kind of going at it a bit until it kind of slowly came off. So again, doing it on Spider-Man, it does take a gentle hand and time. So you just got to be patient because you don't want to go too deep into the blue where you get down to the red, because then you'll be in a tough spot at that point. All right, here we go. Abdomen with the paint fully removed on the sides. I think that turned out great. I did end up needing to use a Gundam marker to redraw the lines, but it's such a minimal amount that I think you can barely see it. So let's try the black line down here real quick and see if we get super lucky with that. Okay, so I can definitively say don't do the back. So it started coming out a little bit, but then it really just took off the red a little bit too much, and you can see that it's white underneath. And so what's interesting about this though is that first you notice that the red on the spider is much brighter than the red of the plastic, because I think what's happening is that it's red to start, and then they put blue over it, and then in order for the red to not be too dark, they painted white, and then they put that red on top. So that's why that white is there. So I'll just cover that with a little bit of red paint. Not that it's gonna look great, but I just want to show you that if you want to try it yourself, I would really, really recommend just leaving that part alone. So now we have our arms, and we're gonna use the same technique that we did already, where we're gonna use a cotton swab with it dipped in the chemical, but then we're gonna go ahead and try to get some of that chemical out so that it's not too soaked, and then we're going to go gently on the blue to try to just get it off. All right, here's our arm, pretty much finished all in one go. Took a couple cotton swabs to do. There was quite a bit inside of the grooves of the muscle right there, so that took multiple pointed cotton swabs to get out. I don't know how well it comes off on camera, but you can kind of see a red spot right there. You can see that either I rubbed a little bit too much there, or that's where the paint was thinnest. And so I ended up getting through it just enough for some of the red molded plastic to shine through. But I'm not too worried about that. It's a very small spot, and I think it'll be okay. So otherwise, you can see it all came off pretty well using the same technique. I'm also going to go ahead and try to get rid of the red shading in here right now and see how well that goes. So I'm going to just try to go around the lines as best as I can, and then I'll just touch it up with a Gundam pen if I have to. Okay, so that was definitely easier said than done. I ended up smudging several of the lines, so I went ahead and just kind of went through it the whole way. But I'm just going to use a pen right now and clean that up. There it goes, quick and easy with a Gundam pen. A little thicker than the lines from factory, but I don't think it's too bad. I don't think it's any worse than some of the QC I've seen on some of these figures. So overall, I am totally fine and happy with how that turned out. So let's move on. Here is our other arm. That one came off pretty well as well overall. However, I don't know how well it comes off, but I do have a few spots where the red started coming through. And I think what that is because the paint on the torso is much thicker than on the arms. I think it's a much lighter layer that they did on the arms. So please be very wary of that when you attempt this. Otherwise, I'm just gonna go ahead and do the same thing to remove the shading here. And then, like I said, it's just going to come off, and then I'm just going to go back over with a Gundam marker. And just so you can see the way I'm doing it, is I'm doing it to try to leave as many of at least the vertical lines there, so I can trace back over them and then more easily reconnect the lines that have been wiped away. There's our right arm pretty much completed. I'm really happy with how that came out. And last but not least, we have our boots. We have a little bit of shading on the inside of one and then on the outside of the other. And I think the technique that we already have of just kind of wiping it away and then going back over with the Gundam marker is going to be the best way to get it out. Okay, here's how my boot turned out. A little smudged, but I don't think it's bad. I'm satisfied with that. Another boot done. Also a little messy, but if you have a steadier hand than me, then go for it. And there we have it. We have a Cel shaded animated Spider-Man. So it wasn't too bad. You definitely need to take a lot of precautions like I talked about at the beginning. I will say that the majority of people doing this, especially if you're doing this for the first time, you might want to stay away from doing the red parts, because you know, you may not have a steady hand for the lines, and you may not be happy with how it turned out. If you think my lines are sloppy, then that's a thing to consider, because I'm happy with my lines, with how I did them on the boots and on the cuffs. But you know, everybody's gonna have a different opinion on that. So otherwise, the blue isn't too bad. And then again, with the caveats on the arm specifically having a lighter layer of blue. And then don't forget, I would avoid touching the black line on the spider on the back. That one is not a simple remove. I tried a few more things to see if I can make it work, and it just kind of made things worse. So I'll eventually go back over that with a little bit of red paint and fix that right up. But otherwise, there you have it. I'm really happy with how it turned out overall, and I think was simpler than I thought, but that I think probably comes down to being well prepared. I want to say a special shout out to Turboman0128, who helped getting this guy to me, because mine just still to this day haven't shipped. They still shows delayed. Please check him out. He is a great diorama maker and takes some really awesome pictures. His Instagram link will be down below. Otherwise, if you're interested in seeing more Cel shading, then check out some of my other ones over here.